Hello everyone and welcome to a preview of Panzer Corps 2. After playing through the first couple of scenarios in the press release, I decided to at least go over the new things, or at least this game as we have it currently. First, a disclaimer, because this preview is going to be of the press release. I don't have the final game yet. Some things might change so far. I might talk about things that are not in a preview, which might or might not be in the released version. I can't talk about that. I can only judge the game based on what I've seen so far. So I'm going to be talking about things that I might not see in here, which I would like to see in the final game as well. But yeah, I can't make a decision on the final game, of course, because, well, I don't have that yet. Anyway, I'll be starting, basically this review will be comprised of three parts, which I think are important to this game. So one, the actual gameplay. Two, the storytelling and the immersion into the game and into World War II. And then three, the graphics. So I'll start with storytelling first, because I think that's the easiest to do, especially when we're actually starting with this here campaign map. I'm going to be comparing this game a lot to both Panzer Corps 1 and Panzer General. And why am I naming these two games? Well, these two are the successors to Panzer Corps 2. This game is supposedly in line of these games. That's why it's called Panzer Corps 2 and not a completely different game. So it's looking to build upon the idea of Panzer Corps and Panzer General before that. So the first thing that immediately comes to my into vision in this game is the different way of the briefings. In Panzer Corps and in Panzer General, you had a briefing at the start of a mission. That would be the only briefing. It would be from the general telling you what to do. And in this game, it's done through an actual conversation. Like the general is actually talking to you and then giving you your orders while on the map, instead of doing that beforehand. Which in itself is, I think, a pretty interesting concept, and I think is not actually that bad. I honestly, I think it works. I think it's fine. It's not super amazing, but they also said that they would change it still a bit, but I think that's actually okay. They do have already a strategy set out for you on the map itself. So you can, you already know a bit what to expect, and I think that works better than a briefing beforehand, where you still have to kind of guess what's going on the map. And now they're already telling you, okay, this is kind of like the optimal strategy, and I think that actually works pretty well. So if we were to go, for example, into the game here, like for Poland South, it doesn't really matter. We can already see that they will have a strategy for you on the mission itself. Like, they will tell you, okay, this is what you have to do. Advance here first, then you're going to do something next, and after that, this is what you're going to have to do. And I think that actually works. I think that's nice. They should definitely not do this the way it is right now, where you have to keep scrolling continuously, because that's actually really annoying. So whenever I'm going through the briefing, I should not have to scroll down continuously in order to read the text. So that's something that they want to remove. Like, I think that's the bad part of it. Having the initial briefing like this, totally fine. I like that. Having to scroll like this constantly, it doesn't work, because now I have to keep scrolling while reading, or I have to go through the entire briefing, then go back, and both of those are not something that you want to do. So yeah, that's the bad part about it for now. But I like the concept. If they work that out, I think that works quite well. So that's the first part of it. The second part of it, I'm missing an outro. So if I succeed in a mission, and I can probably load up a game here. If they actually do save that. No, they don't. Okay. But whenever you finish a mission, you just automatically go to the next one. Yeah, you get a choice, but once I finish Poland, or the second mission in Poland, the game immediately tells me, oh, you're gonna go to Norway. And if I'm new to World War II, or I don't already immediately know what's going on, I don't know what's happening. Did I win? Did I defeat Poland? What happened to Denmark? What else is going on? How well did I do? And I'm missing an outro here. Both in Panzer General and in Panzer Corps, they always had an outro saying how you're doing. It doesn't have to be 2 pages of text. Just a simple congratulations, Herr General. Poland has fallen due to your swift advance. In preparation for the attack on France, we now have to take care of Norway. Like, I need to know why we're doing this. Why are we attacking Norway? Why attack Belgium? Why go through there? I don't know. And I don't know whether they're going to implement that in the actual game. But I'm missing it now. I really am missing it. And I think that's a very important part of these games. Why is the Grand Campaign so great? It's not because you're just doing a bunch of random missions. It's because you're really immersed in the battles and what's going on. You have these elaborate details about where you're going, what's happening. We're attacking, we're doing Case Blue, why are we doing this? Things like that. It immerses you into the game, it immerses you into World War II, and that's what I'm missing without these briefings. And I think you need these briefings to give you an overview about what's happening in the war. How did you do? What effect does your assault have? Okay, great. I cut off. I reached the channel. Why did I go there? Why did I reach the English channel? And what effect does it have on the enemy forces? I'm missing that, really. And I think that having only a new briefing in the next mission doesn't really showcase what's going on, and I think that's a shame. Because even in Panzer Corps, in the Wehrmacht campaign, you did have that. So I don't know whether that will be in there. It might. If it's in there, great. But I'm missing it now. Next up, I think, is this map. Now, this might be a little bit nitpicky, but if I start the campaign and say that I'm doing Barbarossa, it would actually be great to see what terrain is all axis. So take, for example, a game like Strategic. It's Panzer Strategy Blitzkrieg. Yeah, exactly. They actually show you on the map which areas are Axis and which areas are Allied. And I think that's great. That's also part of the storytelling. How are we doing in France? How are we doing in Norway? In Denmark? Is Sweden neutral? Is it Axis? Or what is it? Is Italy joining the Axis? I don't know. Because I can't see it on the map. And I would like to be able to see that. How far did I advance into Africa? What happened to Vichy France? And again, showing this on the map with an overlay is, like, I don't want to say it's easy to make, but it's a relatively simple feature, much less time consuming to make than the way they're doing all of the units right now. And I think it really helps you immerse into the game and makes for a much better game if you implement such simple things. I think people really want to see that, and I think it really helps. So again, I'm missing that. That might be in the final game, but I would really like to see that in Panzer Corps 2. So yeah, a bit nitpicky, like I said, but I would really like to see that. So that's that. So we talked about the briefings, about the map, about, there's another thing, the campaign. So from what I've gathered is that there are no longer major victories and minor victories in this game. And the way that I'm reading into this, the way it seems to me is that for each mission, you need to get a victory in order to continue into the campaign. But when you get a victory, you always get to choose your path if there's an ahistorical option. And the way I read it too is that you can choose to go for a losing path or a winning path yourself. So say that you beat the Allied forces at El Alamein. Then the game will allow you to choose to take an ahistorical path or a historical path. And if you have, for example, done well at France, you get to choose your... Well, if you have a victory, I think, in the Paris scenario, you get to choose yourself whether you want to do Sea Lion or whether you want to go to Italy or to North Africa, or probably like a Greece or Yugoslavia, whatever. Something like that. Or maybe it's just immediately Barbarossa. However, I don't know why they did that. So basically it means that you always get to choose the path that you take or which mission you're gonna take. And I personally don't get this decision because they changed it in such a way that the faster you complete the missions, the more prestige you get. But what was wrong with the old system where people would have to get a major victory? Yeah, it might have been based on one turn alone. Sure, that's one of the negative parts, but that's the only negative thing that you could find about this system. And then you made that into such a big deal that you decided to get rid of this altogether. Whereas it more or less seems like you made the decision that you don't want players to feel bad for not getting the best victory. That's how it looks like. You don't want players to feel bad, and you're taking this to such an extreme that you're trying to take out as like this supposed failure from the game. You're trying to take away all of the potential for success. Because on the one hand, yeah, you're taking away the grief for not getting a major victory, but on the other hand, you're also taking away the success of achieving a major victory. And that's one thing that I think the developers are forgetting here. You're taking away that feeling of achievement and of success by getting the major victory. That's what you're removing. You're taking that away, because people are not going to feel great at finishing mission on turn 13 or turn 12 out of 20 if it's always going to be a victory. People are going to have less of a success experience by taking away that negative thing. And I think that you're making people less interested in the game because they're not going to get that endorphin rush from getting the major victory. It's no longer there. Whenever I finish a mission, I'm like, yeah, great, I got another victory. No big deal. Fine, I checked another mission off the list. Did I do well? I don't know. I just got a victory. Whether it was turn 11 or turn 20, I'm getting the same feeling from finishing a mission. Whereas if you do have that major victory kind of system, I can feel great about my achievement. Man, I got the major victory despite all odds. I still made it. I did very well. and you're taking it away. And I think that's a shame. I think that's a bad decision myself, and I think the game is worse for it. That's just my feeling. It might be a preference. If you feel that, if you feel that it's that important to you to not feel like a lesser player than maybe other people, or you feel like you're not competent enough in the game, sorry, it's just, I don't know. I really don't get such a decision myself, but sure. Like, if you don't want players who... There are different ways to make people who can't invest the time or who are not as good as players to make them achieve the success anyway. They can change the difficulty settings. They can turn that lower. They can give themselves more prestige. They can give the enemy less strength points or you more. They can do all these things in order to achieve the major victory anyway. But you're taking one of the key competitive elements in the game without using multiplayer. And I think it's a shame. I actually think that there's now absolutely no reward for players to be doing well. Oh yeah, just great. 80 more prestige out of the already 6,000 extra prestige that I already had. It's worthless. But if I did well and I now... Oh, wow, I got this additional scenario. That's wonderful. I remember being so excited for example, for playing the Middle Eastern scenario in Panzer General, coming out of Africa in 1941, decisively defeating the British. It was I thought back then it was very tough to do as a little kid, and getting into Middle Eastern, and then if you did well there, getting to go to the Caucasus, attacking the Caucasus from the south, it felt like such a great achievement, something that you did. It was awesome, getting those major victories. And you could choose yourself already by just, not taking that last victory hex to go down a losing path anyway. Like, you always had the choice. If you did well, you always had a choice whether you would go down the historical path or whether you would take ahistorical. But you had that drive, that edge, in order to try and do your best to get the absolute most out of every turn you took. And every movement you made. And I'm losing that now. It's like, oh well, just another turn, that's fine. So yeah, sorry that I'm going on about this, but I think personally that's a design flaw myself, and I think the game's worse for that. It's a personal opinion, like with everything else, but I like it less. So those are the 3 things about storytelling that I wanted to go through. Next up, I guess, will be the graphics. So first of all, let's actually go into a game here. Let's just start something up. Let's go for a scenario. And let's go for Defender of the Reich, because I think then we can see everything as probably a good idea. So for the graphics, we have both the UI, the strategic map, and the graphics in the scenario. The graphics of the strategic map, I think they look fine. They're nice. It's smooth. Basically, the map itself looks the way you want it to. Like I said, I would like to see an overlay about what the Axis gains are and what the Allied gains are. But I already discussed that before. So then we're talking about the UI. I think it looks very smooth. Everything looks quite nice. If you want, you can... Well, it's a pretty big map here for this mission, actually. But yeah, all of that looks nice. There are a few things that I might have wanted different... Like, I would have liked to see different information here, like maybe movement of my units, for example. They didn't have that in Panzer Corps itself, I believe, as well. And I still think that's a bit of a letdown myself. I really want to see what the movement, the movement for my unit is. And yeah, I know most infantry have 3, whatever. And the tanks, you can usually guess if you're more experienced with the game. But I would not know what the movement of the Panzer IV is. And then I have to press this I and then look here. And I would like to actually see that somewhere down here, if I'm honest. But, you know, that's just a personal preference. But I think the UI in itself looks quite nice. You have all your different stats here, things like that. So that's pretty useful. You can easily switch between these different things. There's a unit list. These are mines. I don't know what kind of weird picture this is. It just looks just really weird to me. I suppose they're mines, but it looks kind of dorky. They're probably still going to change that. Yeah, anyway, everything looks relatively nice here. They have a couple of objectives here, but yeah, this is easy to use. Unit stats. I guess you could keep this out there all the time. That might also be useful then. If you want to play like that, that might also work. You know, but I think having that information just here might be a little bit easier. The movement here does actually show things like 1 and 5. So that does make me believe that this is actually a bug or mistake, because it says 50 here, but here it says 5. So I think it's more likely that this is actually how it's supposed to be. But anyway, I like the UI. It's great that this is up here. Very useful, very nice, smooth. I know at all times how many rail transports I have, air transports, prestige, and things like that. Turns here, also super nice. I can see the weather, which sides are playing on the map. You know, nothing to complain about. Perfect. Nothing to change, I think, personally myself. Besides that, the graphics in the game itself, the design of the units and of the map. So if we let's talk about the map itself first. And the one thing that I find difficult about the map is, one, it's super detailed, which is nice, but the terrain to me looks really flat. Almost as flat, for some reason, it feels like, as 2D. And I don't know why, but that makes the map look a bit bland, especially with the coloring scheme, which also has a lot of bland colors. That means that things are tough to see, and with a bland map, people are going to be less interested. Like, I'm sorry, that's just the way it works. If the map looks bland, then they're not going to be as excited as, for example, with Panzer Corps, where I think the map itself was more colorful. And because it was more colorful, it looked more awesome. That's just the way it is. I'm sorry. Yes, the map is more detailed. Gotta give it to them. It looks nice, but because the coloring scheme, the bland colors, I think that's a bit unfortunate. But you know, like I said, it looks very nice. This looks great, but it's just bland. Okay, so that's the map itself. Rivers, etc. Very nice. I really like that they put the names of the rivers there. Very helpful. So I'm glad they do that. So that's great. Nothing to complain about the naming, I guess. Yeah, I also don't specifically like the way they did this, but that's also a preference, I suppose. As for airfields, looks fine. Cities looks nice like this. So yeah, sure. Apart from the map looking a bit bland, I think we're fine. next to the units, where they kind of have a similar problem. If you zoom in, and I don't have the settings at maximum right now, but even on high, let's actually try to set this to maximum. Why not? So let's do graphics quality maximum. Let's set everything to maximum. I did this for the frame rate, but it will be fine while I'm not playing, I think. So let's, yeah, sure. Bam, bam, bam. Let's do that. Perfect. So let's face it. It looks amazing, right? I think this looks amazing. It's beautiful. It's detailed. It's gorgeous. It looks awesome. Absolutely beautiful. Look at this. This is great. But then I zoom out, and I personally feel like this is already almost the maximum I can zoom out while still seeing those details. Because if I zoom out even just a little bit more to the point where I can actually have a tactical overview of the situation, which is what you want, the units are almost like they're very hard to differentiate. I can see very little difference between the Panther A and an E75. E75, you ask? Yeah, an E75. It looks like a King Tiger to me, but maybe they call it E75. I don't know. E75. It's not a Tiger 2. Okay, that's E75 Standard Panzer. It seems to be even better. I would have to check up on what this thing is, but okay. Anyway, the unfortunate thing is that you cannot discern the units anymore at this point. This is Volkssturm and this is Volksgrenadier. I cannot see the difference from here. What is the difference? Can you tell me here right now? This difference here? Anything? I can't see it. And that accounts for more units over here. It's hard to see what kind of recon this is. I can't see the barrel. You know, it's just Volksgrenadier, and then this is Volkssturm. Okay. Well, sure, but it's hard to see. And Panzer, okay, it's the same. But I think they could have done a little bit of a better job at making the units more detailed, even when you're zooming out. Like, I need the lines to be more distinct at looking like this, because I have a hard time discerning between the units. And again, at that point, things look bland. This looks like a gray blob. No offense, but it's like a block of gray. And that's unfortunate. I can read that it's a Sturm Tiger, and if I zoom in, again, it looks absolutely amazing like this, but not like this. And they might improve that. Again, I don't know whether they will, but that's just how it is right now. So yeah, that's a bit unfortunate. That's the one complaint that I have. The map is a bit bland. I would try to change the coloring scheme, and the units are not discernible enough from a higher view, I think, personally. But besides that, it's okay. Like I said, great detail from up front, less detail from afar, but you're mostly playing from afar, so that is a bit unfortunate. I don't know. I'm not going to use the map ever like this, and yeah, I don't know what service this or what purpose this serves, but yeah, I don't know. They could leave it out for my part, but if that's something that they want, that's fine. Yeah, anyway, that's, I guess, it for the graphics. So we talked about in-scenario graphics. Oh yeah, we have the units again here in the purchasing screen. It looks amazing. I mean, you can't see it now because I can't really purchase the units. But yeah, they look beautiful. They're really great. So that looks very nice, I think. Although sometimes you do have to wait a bit for it, actually. But yeah, overall, nice. Okay, great. The last part of this game is then the game play. And there are, again, different components in that. Let's just say that the way this game plays with the maps, the new mechanics, because this game is quite different from Panzer Corps, and then the way the units play out. So the units themselves behave in much the same way as... No, actually, let's restart that. So they introduced a couple of different mechanics in this game so that it was distinct from Panzer Corps. And from the moment you start this game, you get the sense that almost everything they tried to do in this game, or at least a lot, they purposefully tried to do it different from Panzer Corps 1. And I can only guess at the reason why they did this, because most of the mechanics in Panzer Corps 1 actually worked. They were done very well. A lot of them, at least. Not everything. But they seem to have purposefully changed a lot of things in this game, maybe almost for the sake of change itself, which is always bad. But I will go over them. So the first thing that changed, and I think is the most positive change myself, is the way that the air units now work. Air units now always are operated from a single airfield, and then they always return to that airfield, and they have to go from that airfield again every single turn. And I think that works very well. I think that represents the way aircraft work. They have to go back to the airfield to refuel, and then they can go out again. They can't just keep being on the map for all eternity, and sometimes just going to different airfields, refueling there, things like that. So I think that's nice. Sure, you didn't have to change that because the old system worked well enough, but sure, as a change, I actually like it. That's fine. It's easy to adapt to, and it works. It actually makes sense to do it like that. Perfect. So don't change that. Second, the way that the units now work, or at least the artillery now work, is different from in Panzer Corps and Panzer General. So it used to be that artillery would always counter fire as long as they weren't in trucks and they were behind another unit. They would always have that support attack. That's no longer necessarily the case, as the default option for artillery is that artillery can only fire at soft targets in defensive fire, and anti-tank units can only counter attack or do defensive artillery, so to say, against hard targets. So that means that for a certain unit you will have to choose. Are they going to be attacked by hard targets or by soft targets? And I don't really know why they went for this choice. It's not something from Order of Battle. You hear a lot of people say that, oh, they took this from Order of Battle, they took that from Order of Battle. But it doesn't really work that way in Order of Battle, where the artillery is still able to counterfire everything, and then the anti-tanks will only do that against enemy tanks. So I think there's something inherently wrong with the idea of not letting your regular artillery fire back at tanks, even if it's just a low amount of suppression. Because the fact that the artillery is less effectual, is less efficient at countering the enemy tanks is in their lower heart attack. They already have lower heart attack, your artillery, so they are already going to suppress less of the tank strength than for example, an anti-tank unit would do. And they can still use counter battery, or they could still use that counter fire, even if it's only a marginal effect against the tank. So why would you remove that? I don't know. It seems like they just removed that in order to switch up the gameplay mechanics, because it does not really seem like there's a good underlying reason for that. And they claim that artillery fire is not very effectual against tanks, and that's why they can do it in this game. Yeah, but you're already representing that by having that lower heart attack. So then why would you do that, right? Because now these units, yeah, they can still suppress on the offensive, sure, but there's no real reason to take away that ability. And it does mean that you're going to take more casualties. As you'll find that many of the mechanics that they implemented means more casualties. And because you take more casualties, now you, for example, in most cases get prestige per turn as well, to counter these losses. So I don't really know why they did that. It seems unnecessary. And then also some of the artillery can do that anyway. I don't know if these guys have it. Probably not. No. So, for example, the heavier artillery. These guys, for example, even have support fire against enemy artillery units in range. They have counter battery fire. These guys wouldn't have it. So these guys, for example, can have anti-tank support. And these guys have regular artillery support. It's like the smaller ones have artillery support now, so that's only against soft targets. Then you have medium artillery, like even though that's already heavy artillery, but sure. Yeah, that have counter battery fire. So they provide support fire against enemy artillery units in range, but not against ground targets. They do have anti-tank support, but no light support. The 15 centimeter one has artillery and AT, but no counter battery. And then the 21 centimeter has counter battery and AT support as well. But they switched all of this up, so the different units have different abilities. And you really have to be careful and check which one does what. Because the Hummel, again, does have artillery support and anti-tank support, for example. So you have to really choose your units here. I don't know. I think it worked fine the way it used to be. It's surely something that you just have to adapt to, but I don't know why they changed it. And it makes it so that you'll take more casualties in general. So that's a change. The different change that they made in this game, I guess, is the supply. So you don't have to manually use supply anymore. They have an encirclement system, but with the way supply works now, you have to almost never worry about supply. Like literally never, unless your units are cut off. I wonder how they're going to do that in Russia, but maybe they have some kind of map penalty where your units don't get that much supply or fuel or something. But I think it's a bit weird for your units to always get all of their supply unless they're cut off. So that's different. Then that your units can get cut off is a completely different mechanic. This game doesn't work with actual, let's just say it borders like they do in Order of Battle. Every hex you take will transfer control to you, and then if the enemy goes through that control transfers back to the enemy. They don't have that in here, but they do have encirclements, and I personally find that the way encirclements work in this game are a bit weird. Now I get that they did it this way because they didn't like the idea. How it used to work in Order of Battle is that sometimes your supply lines would go through a single hex, and then the enemy would get a 1 strength unit and go through your line, and then all your supplies would be cut off because a low strength unit would get on there. And I think that the reason why they didn't do that here is because, again, that feels... They want to take away that bad feeling that you get. Like, oh, my units are cut off by a 1 strength unit. How could they do this? This is completely unrealistic. This is a bad game. I hate this game. I'm never going to play it again. They're afraid of people's reaction like this. And I feel that that's why they cut that out. And instead, they came up with this system where your units are always going to be in supply, except when they're cut off. And this cutoff system seems to work a little bit weird. And I don't fully like the way it's being done right now. But I guess it's something we'll have to work with. According to me, units get cut off much like in very weird situations where you wouldn't expect them to be cut off, because you still have ways open through your zone of control through which your units can get supplies, but then the game acts as if they're already cut off, which I think is weird. And then in other cases, enemy units don't get cut off in a situation where you would expect them to be cut off. For example, what could happen is I could technically control all the hexes on the entire map except this flag. And if I have units here, 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 and basically just in an entire circle around it, the unit wouldn't be cut off unless it's right next to it. But if I'm a bit further away, they would still be in supply. Probably unless I cut off every single hex, but yeah, who knows. Anyway, I think it works very strangely. And if you've seen my videos, you might have seen quite a few instances where the encirclement mechanics were a bit weird as well. So they need to fine-tune that, I think, in order to make that work properly. Also, the fact that units can easily retreat out of their encirclement. It's like, okay, but weren't they encircled? The idea that they can't get out, then why are they running out of their encirclement? That's strange. And it's not as if they're breaking out, they're just retreating out of the encirclement. Strange. I don't think it should work like that. So if the game draws lines, like this is the encirclement pocket, make sure that those units can't retreat out of it, only fight their way out of it. That would make a lot more sense, you know? Just weird now. But maybe they already changed that, and again, we don't know. But yeah, I think that's the motivation. They didn't want to have the hexes coming under your control, the enemy being able to disrupt that. And then you also have the problem that they would have to code all of that, which takes very long, of course, because the AI will have to behave very specifically in order to try and cut you off. And it will take a long time to code that, and time is money, so it's much simpler, I think, to make the game like this than to change the entire AI behavior based on a new mechanic, which they don't have to do now. They don't have to change the behavior of the AI to try and cut you off specifically. I haven't really seen the AI go for encirclements myself. They've gotten incidental encirclements, but I haven't seen them actively try to encircle my troops. So yeah, like I said, they didn't have to code for this, and that makes it a bit easier, I think, for them, cheaper to produce the game, etc., etc. So I think that might actually get in there as well. But you never know what kind of reasons people might have, and of course they're never gonna say outright that would be the reason, if that actually was the case. Like, who's gonna say, yeah, we want to make a cheaper game? Okay. Anyway, that's the new mechanics. Don't know if I'm actually forgetting one. Right. The game so far, I've seen only primary objectives in the first couple of maps. I don't know whether they purposefully took out those secondary objectives, whether they're not there yet, but one, you could have a lot more secondary objectives. Look at a game like Panzer Strategy. It has a ton of secondary objectives for each mission, which bring a ton of storyline and immersion into the battles, make it exciting. I want to get that additional general, I want to get that captured unit, etc., etc. And there was always a storyline behind it, and that was amazing. That was one of the great things about that game. If I would have to say what's the greatest thing about a game like Panzer Strategy, it's the storyline. It's the immersion in the game. Yeah, not all the historical accuracy is complete, but they really immerse you in the battles. It's like, oh no, I want to actually, delay the train with the Char 1 tanks on top of it. It's gonna escape the battlefield, and I need to capture those Char B1 tanks. I'm missing that currently. I'm missing that kind of storyline around it. It's part of the gameplay, getting additional objectives, and you can do so much with that. And I think personally that Strategic Mind, the Pacific, just the designers of those two games, they did a tremendous job with their secondary objectives. That's great. They really immerse you in the game, and that's what I'm missing. So that's part of the gameplay. I'm missing secondary objectives. It seems like currently every mission is capture all the objectives. Yeah, great. Seen that, been there, done that. Doing that every map, I know at some point you'll get defensive missions, but it's not a lot of variety so far. So I'm missing that a little bit at the moment. Besides that, the way the units work, interact, and things like that, besides the artillery anti-tank thing, that's okay. They have a ton of different units, so at least that's nice. They really gone out of the way to get a bunch of different units and explore everything there. That's nice. I really like that. I do appreciate that. Not all the stats are, historically representative, but for the way games are designed, you want it to be playable. So I can get behind that. I see why it is like that. So that's okay. So I think that's fine as far as gameplay goes. Yeah, so I think that is about it. When it comes to gameplay, there's one last thing. Oh yeah, there is the splitting up of units. And I've never gotten that mechanic. So if you have enough slots open, you can split a unit in half at the cost of additional auxiliary slots or core slots. And even though at surface level that seems to be a nice mechanic, it is something that you in practice will never use. Literally, almost never use. Why is that? For your core slots, you want to have the maximum amount of units in your core slots. If we're playing the regular campaign, for example, you always want to have on a mission the maximum amount of core slots filled, because that will get you more strength on the battlefield. But it costs core slots to split a unit. So if you can only do it if you don't have the maximum amount of units on the battlefield. And there's only one reason why you would not have the maximum amount of units on the battlefield, and that's when you're low on prestige and you don't have enough prestige to buy all the units you need. and you don't want to be in a position where you don't have enough prestige to buy all the units you need. That's already a bad situation to be in, and probably a situation where most people are not going to be in. I'm sure most people will have enough prestige to buy all the core slots that they need. But if you have filled all the core slots, you can't split your units. And why would you? I would rather have 2 full-strength Panzer Force than 2 half-strength Panzer Force. So I'm naturally not going to leave core slots open in order to split my units, because if I can get a full-strength unit in that place, why would I get a half-strength unit there? That makes no sense. So as long as you have prestige, all your core slots are going to be filled, and you cannot use the ability to split your forces. And I haven't used that ability a single time up until Paris, because there was no need to do this. I could, but why would I? Makes no sense. If you can get full strength units, why would you go for half strength? Now, it might potentially be useless in some cases for your auxiliary units. But I will find, or at least it seems to me, that it's very limited in use. And I will still have to see how much this will get used in practice. Because you will likely only do it for auxiliary units or on standalone scenarios. Maybe it will be useful there. But I find its use, the use of splitting units, to be extremely limited. And you will not use this very often if you're already doing well, I think. But maybe I'm wrong, but it doesn't seem to be very useful to me. So I think it's a whole lot of fuss for something that doesn't really add a lot to the game. I do think that it's nice that they have standalone scenarios. I think you can do a lot with standalone scenarios, like this Defense of the Reich. I think that's nice. You can put some challenges for players. That's cool. I like that. It's something that they also do for Unity of Command, and I think that works. One thing that's not for me is the random battles. If that's your thing, then all the more power to you. But I don't really care for it myself, so oh well. It's a bit of a shame, but that they put so much effort into doing that, because the random battles really seem to be a spearhead of their media campaign, but it's really not for me. So it's out there. If you like that kind of thing, cool. And if that's not your thing, then it doesn't really have any added benefit. So yeah, sure. I'm not going to talk a lot about that, because for me, it's neither positive nor negative. It doesn't affect me at all in general. So to conclude, what have I seen so far? There are definitely a couple of things that Panzer Corps can still improve. I've seen some positive things in the game, sure. When it comes to storytelling, like I said, things like end briefings, reintroducing major victories, things like that, showing Axis progress on the world map. Those kind of things can all help you immerse in the storyline. Same for secondary objectives when it comes to gameplay. I haven't seen that many so far yet, but if you take a look at, for example, games like Panzer Strategy and Strategic Mind the Pacific, you can really see what those secondary objectives can do for immersing people into the game and into World War II. And that was amazing, and I think they should do something similar for Panzer Corps 2, which I'm currently missing, and that's a shame. So that's it for storytelling. When it comes to graphics, like I said, UI looks amazing, strategic map looks good, but we could use the victory progress, things like that. In scenario, the color scheme is not great. Things look a little bit flat, a little bit bland. If you zoom in, units look amazing, but if you zoom out, not so much anymore. So they might want to do something there. And then when it comes to gameplay, it's okay. I think the new mechanics don't really add a whole lot myself. I guess the best one is the the way aircraft works now, but it seems like they changed a lot of things when it comes to that for no particular reason. They did a complete overhaul of the retreating mechanics. It's like, why? It worked fine. The way artillery worked, why? It worked fine before. Why change a winning formula? They overhauled a lot, and I don't see the reason for it. Like, it seems like change for the sake of change, and that's not really necessary. So yeah, I talked about the campaign being very linear in that sense. I already did that. Gameplay, it's a bit bland currently. I'm just going through map after map, but it doesn't really get me that excited for the aforementioned reasons. I don't know what's going on. Why am I attacking here? Why am I attacking there? Why does taking these objectives is absolutely important. One thing that they could implement, and which I think was absolutely great, is something that they did in Unity of Command 1. They already skipped that in Unity of Command 2, and I don't know why they did it. It was absolutely great. It was a small description of why you take certain important cities. Like, they would tell you, Kursk is an important rail hub on the way to Voronezh, and we must capture it in order to improve our logistics. Done. Paris is the capital of the French, which will surely decrease their morale if taken, etc., etc. Done. It's just a couple of lines. You can put that out there. I thought it was amazing, and it's something they could put in here too. They still have a couple of weeks, and I think that could work for them. Currently, the preview version that I've played, if I were to give it a grade with what I've seen, I would probably give it a 5 out of 10. I was initially quite afraid of how Panzer Corps 2 would turn out to be after Panzer Corps 1. And I have to say that it's not as bad as I thought it would initially, but it's also not as great as it could be at the moment. And I think they could do a better job, if I'm honest. It's okay, but it's nothing special at the moment, and as afraid as I am to say it, I currently I'm having more fun with a game like Panzer Strategy and Strategic Mind. If I would have to choose and I would still go back to Panzer Corps 1. I think Panzer Corps 1 is currently, with the way the preview played out, it's still better than Panzer Corps 2. And I think it can be a greater game. I think Panzer Corps 2 has the potential to be greater than Panzer Corps 1. But with this preview, they are not there yet. I think. They can, but they're not there. And I'm eagerly awaiting to see what differences there are between the preview and the actual game. And I'll probably do an LP of it anyway, just because I do like to see how these games play out. And I do LP most of the new games in which I have an interest in. It's still World War II strategy game, and in general, I do like to play these kind of games. So I will definitely LP it, regardless of whether the game will be different or not. But I'm just here to, talk about these things, and I'm interested to know how other people feel about that, and whether they would agree or disagree, or whether they see other improvements, whether they think that the mechanics work very well, or whether they have a lot of difficulty with the new mechanics. Obviously, I'm new to the game, so I don't know all the ins and outs, and I do take into account that I'm naturally going to be worse at this game than a game like Panzer Corps 1, because I have a lot more experience. So that it's not that's clouding my judgment or anything. Like, that's definitely not part of it. But yeah, that's just very quick and very short how I feel about this game. So I will see you all at the release of Panzer Corps 2, one way or the other. Thanks for watching. Well, hopefully my preview as well, and the review too, of course. If you liked it, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe, and let me know what you think about Panzer Corps 2 so far. Take care, see you next time, and bye-bye.